Good morning, everybody. Scott Jewers here again, and we're going to do another episode of the Wolf and the Neural Network. This episode here is going to be specifically in relation to Doctor Holm, a psychologist at Mount Hope in Halifax or Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. I'm going to cover what an abject failure she is, how she lied to cover up what they did to me, and how she very clearly was engaged in coercive torture. And that she knew something else was going on, and she didn't want to face it, so she had me tortured and tried to destroy my life under the guise of helping me live my best life because that monster couldn't face its own fucking delusions. Right? And I'm going to go into some really good evidence and show you what kind of monster this is. Right down to her not even being able to tell me what the police said for me to be able to reasonably defend myself or to offer further explanation. It's pretty objective that this is a fucking failure for a human being, and you're going to see that by the end of this. And what you're then going to see is that monster pretend to be the fucking victim because it can't face its own delusions about its own overinflated sense of self-worth and self-importance. And you got to remember, she's a psychologist, right? So when we go through this, she knows these things about police. She knows the way police are, right? There's whole fields of study dedicated to this. So she knows they lie, cheat, and steal all the time. And then you're going to see her cognitive dissonance and her confirmation bias kick in, so she doesn't have to face her own delusions. As I'm sitting there facing myself, talking about my bias, we're going to discuss how she becomes fixated on certain points, and because she became so fixated and violent about certain points, that we couldn't actually have a discussion about what occurred. So it was her violence, her self-imposed ignorance, her hate, and her delusions that caused us not to be able to have a proper conversation. You'll see that she decided extreme violence and coercive torture within 15 minutes of meeting somebody, simply because somebody told her that somebody else told them something, right? So it was passed along twice to her, right? And this is a psychologist. You'll hear her reject facts and evidence. You'll hear her reject a technical expert. You'll hear her just make completely illogical, irrational choices. What you'll do is you'll note that I reported serious abuse to her. I reported that the admitting doctor got up and humiliated me, holding and straddling the door. I reported that my book bag got to Mount Hope before I ever seen a doctor, and I reported the doctor touching my stomach immediately. I woke up to a man standing over me, and they touched my stomach immediately. Right? Like, you're going to see exactly what this monster wanted to cover up, and it knew it was covering it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the entire recorded session, and really, you got to really think what this monster would have done had there not been a recording of this, right? Because now this fucking monster is going to be held accountable, and she's still going to lie, cheat, steal, and pretend to be the victim. Right? So you really got to keep that in mind when you think about what kind of a piece of monster she really fucking is. All right, so we're going to go through the recording. I'm going to stop and do little blips here and there and talk about it. So let's just do it. Let's jump into it. And keep in mind, I'm going to get kind of heated later on because this is traumatic. Reliving this is real fucking trauma, okay? This is not easy for me to do. What they did to me was fundamentally wrong on so many different levels, and having to relive that over and over and over, and then having to go to this level of detail and have to expose my life like this because of disgusting fucking monster. It's like Doctor Holms. It's traumatic. It's extremely traumatic. It is beyond inappropriate. So please excuse that I do get kind of heated and I use some language against her, but I think it's completely fair, especially given what this dried up monster did to me. Oh, sorry, I was checking.
That's okay. Didn't want to lose you.
Oh, I'm a little nervous.
Nothing to be nervous about. Our unit isn't meant to be a long-term unit. It's just to get people fixed up and sent back home again. So
I
you don't have to be
appreciate
there. You're right in here, yeah. Do you mind if Megan sits in too? She's your son.
That's okay.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Oh, come on in.
Hi.
Hi, Megan. I'm Doctor Holmes. This is Beth. Oh, yeah. You haven't met before. He's okay.
I know, we've seen each other at Scott.
Yes. Nice
Oh,
to
you
officially
like
meet you.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you as well.
How are you, Scott?
I'll admit I'm a little bit nervous right now. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm not going to give you news that you want to hear, okay? So I am going to keep you in the hospital.
Okay.
I do think that you're unwell.
What do you mean, though?
I think that I know that you've committed like tons of time and energy into this, system of ideas of things that fit together, right? And I think that you're seeing connections and things that aren't connected. Okay, so in that, from a psychiatry perspective, that is a symptom of psychosis. okay? But the thing that I do want to tell you though, Scott, is it's treatable.
Okay, can I ask, did you contact the police about my wallet and the case?
I haven't contacted the police, no.
Okay, because like I have like all the letters and stuff. I have the letters from Employment Service Development Canada saying that the defense minister took action, and I can show you like the letters where I contacted these people, and we went through a whole investigation at the shipyard with the directors.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome
HR.
to, if you have somebody who can bring in the information that you'd like to bring in, you're welcome to bring it in. And
What did the police say I did wrong, or did they say I did anything illegal?
You didn't do anything illegal. They were concerned for your mental health, which is why they brought you to the hospital.
And what was the exact issue with the mental health?
They were concerned that you were unwell.
But what under what circumstance? What?
I think, from what I understand, so I haven't talked to the police, it's only what's documented in the emergency statement, right?
Okay.
So when you went to the police department, they were concerned that you were unwell,
I
and
didn't.
so you didn't do anything wrong, but when
No, I
police
talked to them, and like I said, I was very respectful, and she said she was gonna go get me some information. I was like, oh, that's great, thank you, and I talked really respectfully to the police. I wasn't inside, I was on private property, right? I didn't do anything wrong.
No, but
I wasn't on private property, I was on public property.
But Scott, when police are concerned that somebody might be unwell,
But
they do have the capacity under kind of it's called section 14, to be able to bring people to hospital for assessment, okay?
And I understand.
So that would have been why they brought you to hospital, not because they were concerned about you, okay?
But that's the part that I don't fully understand. I was calm, cool, and collected, and like I was completely responsive, and the whole time I was in handcuffs for the 11 hours. I never did anything.
It wasn't about your behavior, it was about what you were talking about.
That's right, but every date that I listed, I can prove was an event because we went through all of this, and that's why I understand that might seem like that, but like if I'm a technical expert, right? I consider myself an investigative journalist as well, right? So I went through and I did my job, and if I was a security researcher, you would say good job. If I was a detective, you would say good job. As an investigative journalist, I did a good job, and like what I would like to do is like sit down and have a conversation with somebody, you know, to discuss the facts before we decide this is psychosis and you go and put pills in me, because I feel like that steals my individuality, you know, like I feel like it's a form of like cruel and unusual punishment, because like when you look back what the police did, like it's very inappropriate that they brought me in under those circumstances.
Well, police, you know, honestly, they do that all the time, right? When they're concerned, it's out of a concern for people.
But they would say that, right, because they didn't look at any of the evidence. As a police officer, I said, okay, I can present you with the evidence. I can prove I did send it to HRP. I can prove I did call RCMP about this and have a discussion, right? We had discussions, and RCMP said, like, now they have to explain these dates. And I told RCMP, like, look, I'm here if you would like to have a conversation. I'm here anytime. I provided my number. I provided contacts. Like, I'm not making like any of this up, and I think that it's really fair.
I certainly don't disagree. I think that you have done all of those things, right?
Right.
But I think what I'm saying,
which connection specifically do you think that I don't think is there?
Right. So the fact that all of the things that you have done have influenced greater things in Nova Scotia history, right?
Not in history at all. Just with McNeil.
Resigning.
Yeah. Did you see the letter that I sent the day before that? That day before he resigned, though?
I have not seen the letter, but you told me about that.
That's right. It was between Jim Perrin, who was the commander, and it was with Harjit Sajjan, who was the defense minister. Now, when I filed the complaint with the shipyard, I said, look, here's what I think should resolve this, you know, the privacy law for all employees, and I'll give the person right at the top 6 months to resign, and we'll keep this quiet, right? So after I sent the letter to the shipyard on the 5th, the next day, Stephen McNeil, you can Google it yourself, he resigned, and everybody was surprised, and he immediately came out and said about the black community because it was involving racism and those types of issues. And then you can check that on February 5th, he then left office, which was 6 months later, like I said, and then the day later, Kevin McCoy also left the office. And then I said, okay, I'm still working with Employment Service Development Canada, and then that ended in March 2021, and I contacted the Prime Minister after I just sent him an email. It was very friendly, and then I had waited, and then I contacted the larger group in September 2021. That's when I engaged RCMP,
Now, the reason this has drug on this long is because the overall company, Post Media, I didn't piece it all together until J.D. Irving sold their media holdings, Brunswick News Inc., to Post Media for $16.1 million. And then I said, Post Media is obviously involved in this. So I went back. So that's how it seems to be taking so long. And this is all dates that you can verify. Like in 2019, the NDP criticized the relationship with Post Media because they're 66% foreign owned.
I'm going to stop you there because we're not going to agree on this, okay?
All right, so we're going to start out by dissecting what she had to say here, right? So we're going to first start off, with the introduction and everything. Everything kind of went well, and she jumped right into it. There was no talking, there was no discussion, so I only got to speak with her for a few minutes under an incredibly prejudiced, biased situation, which she known it was incredibly biased and prejudiced, and where I had been awake for almost 36 plus hours. And she says, you're developing this system of ideas. When this is facts and evidence written down, right? You, Dr. Holmes, developed the systems of ideas and use that to now use violence against me. Immediately, without discussion, without facts, right? And she says you're making connections to things that aren't connected. Okay, so then that's fine. You could say, Scott, well, you think you see ghosts. Okay, well, that's very hard to prove, right? So you're stating that I'm making up connections to things that aren't connected, but you're saying they're not connected, which means that's basically the same truth, but opposite of what I'm saying, which means you must have facts and evidence that state why this is not connected. She has absolutely no proof or evidence when she's sitting in front of a technical expert who's stating, look, I consider myself an investigative journalist, I'm really well educated. That's right. So what is hers based on and what's mine based on? Mine's based on serious set of evidence coming from a technical expert. Hers is based on her bias, prejudice, and her own delusions about her own overinflated sense of self-worth and self-importance. It is based solely on her thoughts, her feelings, and her opinion. That's right. Opinion on something she knows she is not educated in. Not based on evidence. 100%. Well, quite clearly, she is basing it solely on the fact that I am not the right kind of white and they are. And that will become very apparent. And you hear me, then I ask her, did you contact the police? No. Right? And you hear me ask her, what did they say I did? What did they say I did? She doesn't tell me, so I can't even defend myself. They just say, oh, you're just on what? Just on what? Just. They didn't take the complaint like they're legally supposed to. Her argument is the equivalent to God of the gaps. Well, you just are. It just is, right? You can see that same level of cognitive dissonance from this fucking moron. I'm a technical expert, able to answer any single question that you have. I sat there completely calm the entire time, completely calm in this meeting, and then you comes through your admitting doctor, so there, it's been passed off twice, and now it's coming to you. Did you ever play that game where you whisper in somebody's ear? And it's no longer the thing that actually happened by the end, Dr. Holmes? Yeah, you fucking idiot. Right? But also, Dr. Holmes, you were told that admitting doctor, she gets up, straddles the door like this, goes, Scott, test it. He thinks you can hear them. To the police officers, test it. And the other officer sitting there laughing his face off. How do you feel about that? I suppose I'm making that all up too, right? So it fits your fucking delusions, you asshole? Oh, of course I'm probably making it up, right? And then Dr. Holmes, isn't it amazing how my book bag gets to Mount Hope before I ever seen a doctor? And it just so happens to be sent with this guy who's acting all erratic, all stressed out, sketched out. It just so happens to get sent with him. Well, he was being held by 2 HRP officers that heard me talking to this officer about how much J.D. Irving would pay to stay out of jail. Listen, I don't know how that book bag got there. I'll admit to that. But it got there before I ever seen a doctor, and it just so happened to show up with that guy when it had a giant sticker on it. It was taken well after I was in there. It was taken probably 9 hours after I was in handcuffs because it sat with me the entire time. Yeah, didn't report it, did ya? And I told you that in our first meeting, so isn't it interesting you didn't mention any of that? Did you write a report about it? No. Now, I mentioned that the guy touched my stomach. Touched me right here immediately when I woke up. Did you report that? No. Interesting, isn't it? I suppose it all didn't happen, right? To fit your fucking delusions? Yeah, everybody knows what this is, but we're gonna keep going. We're gonna get past that because we'll cover that in the summation of this fucking monster. So, you hear me specifically towards the end asking her to please let's sit down and talk about facts and evidence. She specifically is saying no, it can't be based on facts and evidence. It has to be based on her thoughts, her feelings, her prejudice, and her bias that she fully just admitted to when presented with a technical expert. That's right, she knows I did an investigation with J.D. Irving involving VPs, directors, the defense minister, Jim Perrin, who was a commander of the criminal investigation unit, who just came from HRP, Halifax Regional Police, on these suspicious dates. These people right at the top of J.D. Irving directly. Think about that. And she's saying I can't see how that's connected. Only a dumb fucking monster would say that she can't see how that's connected. Right? This is a lying piece of shit for a human being. She was told we did an investigation. Right? And then she was told that the day I get my Freedom of Information request back, the president of Irving Shipbuilding then steps down. Like, you can literally hear her making up facts and evidence, her making up connections, but telling me it's ridiculous. Anyway.
On this, okay?
But you could Google these things,
yeah,
and I'm not making them up.
yeah.
I can prove the letters and everything to you.
Yeah, so you're welcome to get, like, if there's stuff that you want to bring in for me to look at, I'm happy for it to look at it. But today, I am going to keep you here as an involuntary patient, okay?
But why? I didn't do anything wrong. I have no history.
Because I am concerned for your health and your wellness, right? And I do think, Scott, that this has kind of taken over your life, and it's going to derail your life.
I would have contacted the professional system, like I said, I would have spoken to a lawyer and just said, let them handle it from here, because I got my answer, and that's what I would have done. And like you said in my record, like that I contacted the intake, that's because I contacted Dr. Bradley directly, and he said, look, you have to contact intake to come speak to me. And then I was like, well, given this amount of information, intake may take this incorrectly, just as this situation's going now. So I said, hey, that's maybe not the best situation, because Dr. Bradley also looks after my mother. So to come up with a plan for me, we would have had to talk to him anyway. So that's why I thought that was appropriate, right? So like, I really don't think that it's taken over my life in that way. Yeah. And like, I don't want to consent to any type of drugs or anything like that, because I feel you're taking my individuality, something I've worked very hard in my life towards, right? And then looking at my mother and father, it's like my father doesn't have a diagnosis, so to say it's in my family isn't really fair, and that removes my freedom of association, right? And my individuality, and then where's my freedom of expression and my right to live my life how I would? I haven't caused anybody any harm. I don't feel that overall loss to my life is negative, because I'm extremely educated, and I've taken all this time that I've been doing this to watch a lot of different science videos. I've read a whole thick book on Java alone. I've gone through so many technical documents on how to set up server, like everything. So like, this hasn't just taken over my life. I've literally transformed my entire property into a farm in this period. So, and COVID came up, like I said, in the same time this was happening. So I said, well, I have to look after my mother because she's scared of COVID. So you can see cause effect each step of the way. And then I did try to bring this out and resolve this. And I think you'll agree that when I make a request for my wallet just recently, the Freedom of Information request, that the day I got it back, the new president resigns, and then they said my case is completely locked, nobody can access it. I don't even get access to that information, and the officers will tell you, like, look, that's not typical at all. We had that discussion, so I understand.
So I'm going to end this here, because we are not going to come to an agreement on it, okay? I am going to keep you here as an involuntary patient. I'm going to prescribe you medication.
Please, I can't take medication. I can't do it.
And if you refuse to take it, they will give it to you by injection.
That's what they're going to seriously take my dignity like that. This is so indignant.
And then, if you want, your family's welcome to come visit you.
Please, this isn't right. This isn't right.
You can choose.
This isn't right. I've never been violent or anything in my life. Yeah. This is so wrong. I knew you were going to do that to me.
So Scott, it comes from a place, I know it feels punitive, but it comes from a place of concern.
But are you concerned about what the police did and them doing this?
I'm concerned about your wellness.
What about my wellness?
That I think you're unwell.
But on what grounds? What specifically? You said I'm making connections aren't there, but I can prove every connection. Yeah. And I'm a technical expert.
Okay. I'm going to stop us there, Okay.
So we start right out me saying you can Google these things. So there was a way for her to verify the premise of some of what I'm saying, at least. Right? And as you can see with the Emmett contracts and all of this, we could have sat down and had a talk. She could have Googled some of this, right? She could have looked up the relationships between McNeil and Halifax Regional Police to see that they were brothers. She literally could have looked up every single thing to do with Jim Perrin. All that information is publicly available. She could have done all of this, but it wasn't worth 7 seconds for this woman to even do any type of research herself. To Dr. Holmes, I wasn't even worth a quick Google search, like 27 seconds. Well, she took a shit. So don't anybody tell me this was ever to help me live my best life. This was all so this fucking coward didn't have to face these right kinds of white. That's what it is. Look at all this evidence. People were shocked when I told them what she did. How she couldn't have known. They're shocked. Shocked. They're all like, no, she obviously knew. And you all know she obviously knew. She just didn't want to have to complain against the right kind of white. She knew this was going to come back on her, so better me, the little faggot dog, than her, the big fucking hero, right? Because it had to be based on her prejudice and her bias. Again, like she said, she's got a third-hand record of what occurred, and it's only coming from the police who themselves called themselves a conflict of interest and lied about their responsibilities in taking a complaint. And if you look through the entire episode I did, episode 13, it clearly shows how many times the police objectively, undeniably lied. Like it's undeniable. That's right. And Dr. Holmes, why didn't they just give me the papers to open a complaint? Take a look at the HRP website. They legally have to take that complaint. They didn't take it. No, but you're going to understand what that fucking monster did next. So you're going to understand her complete prejudice and her fucking bias and how it was never based on anything I could have ever possibly said. This piece of monster was always going to do what she was going to do, right? It didn't matter about facts, evidence. It didn't matter about having a rational conversation. It didn't matter about human dignity. What it fucking mattered was that this piece of monster covered up for what she did. So, next, you hear me talking about contacting intake for Dr. Bradley. Now, this would have been in later in August or 2020. Now, the reason for this is because my mother had seen this doctor, okay? And me and her were having serious problems at home. Dr. Holmes is going to make me have to talk to this. I care for this woman, okay? Serious problems. She had basically given up on life. And I had to do everything. And that meant cleaning up certain messes and stuff all the time. And I couldn't do it anymore. And it finally got to me. And I just yelled at her. I just started yelling and I couldn't stop. I just yelled. Because that's the only thing she's ever responded to. Especially when we were younger. Was just fighting all the time and yelling. So I just figured if I just fucking yelled, that she would hear me. I felt fucking awful about it. But if anybody knew the real fucking story, you'd be like, holy shit, Scott, why wasn't your family helping? And the reality is because my family are monster. They don't give a fuck. They're not loving people. They don't care about people. They don't give a fuck about me. If you heard some of the stuff that they did and have said, and how they've treated me and my mother, you would be shocked as individuals. Shocked. I had no help. And in fact, when we get to the end of this, and you hear ultimately what happened with my mother, you're gonna be like, holy shit, Scott. And it's like, yeah, Dr. Holmes is a piece of fucking monster for a human being. And that's going to become very clear. Now, she states, I'm not giving you a diagnosis. Then why are you pumping drugs into me? Sounds like you're saying this is for psychosis, so you're pumping drugs into me? Yeah, you fucking piece of monster. Right? So you hear me talk about my freedom of expression, right to live my life the way I want. She's telling me it's taken over my life. I've done so much in my life. Look how educated I am. I took care of my mother during COVID. She would have died if she got it. It's a non-contestable fact. I had to shut down home care and stuff and do everything myself. And it means including cleaning her, helping her get clean, getting her in the shower every day, wiping stuff off. That's right. Remember, Dr. Holmes told me that wasn't a job. That's right. This woman has absolutely no ability to be able to relate. She told me the care I provided for my mother wasn't a job, right? My mother ultimately died in the care of Nova Scotia Health Authority from urinary tract infection because like Dr. Holmes, they don't consider it a job. She's a piece of fuck monster. And imagine what she would have done had there not been a recording of this. You know what kind of a piece of monster this is, right? You hear me talk about my education, me talk about technical and books. I'm extremely educated. Look at the Wolf and the Neural Network. Look at all of this. Look at all the technical and security reviews I've done. They're not being refuted by RCMP, CSIS, or nobody. They're top fucking grade. Because I'm a technical expert, you monster. You hear me talk about COVID? She's sitting there with a fucking mask on and doesn't understand that COVID existed, so how can I leave ecum secum? Think about that. That fucking monster. She's wearing a diaper on her face, and she can't understand that there was a global pandemic, so what choice do I have but to stay in Ecum Secum? Our internet connection out here is shit. Couldn't have worked out here. I've got all the bills to pay out here. Literally, the global market around the world is crashing. The job market. Nobody knows what's going on. There's massive levels of uncertainty. It affects every person on the fucking planet. But she can't understand that I had to stay out here. So I did what I could out here. How dare I research anything? How dare I protect me and my fucking family? This woman is a disgrace. She's a fucking piece of trash. I've got a really sick mother I've got to take care of, and there's proof. She died 6 months after my fucking false arrest in admittance because she was so sick. She needed someone to take care of her. So what's Dr. Holmes going to say? That doesn't make sense? I should have moved to the city? Paid for everything out here? She's a fucking piece of pig monster for a human being. A completely delusional fucking monster. Right? And then you hear, I'm going to force inject this into you. So now, because of her delusions, because she's suffering delusions, she's now going to be violent. She's going to force drugs into me. Drugs that have a 46% chance, basically 50-50, of causing erectile dysfunction. Is that fucking stupid bitch sits there and says, I'm trying to help you live your best life. What a fucking piece of fucking trash for a human being. And then she mocks me and says, I know this feels punitive. As she, without any evidence, is now going to have multiple men hold me down on the ground and inject me full of erectile dysfunction. When in comparison, all I did was went down to Halifax Regional Police with massive amounts of evidence asking about my rights as a human being. Think about that. It takes a special kind of fucking delusional monster to do what Dr. Holmes did. It is punitive, you lazy fucking bitch. The facts are you are being fucking spoon-fed, and what the fuck did you do? Tortured me. Destroyed my fucking life, you stupid monster. 2 days after my fucking false arrest, they found RCMP sneaking behind my neighbor's fucking house with flashlights. They had to go out and confront them. Oh, that's all delusional, is it? You fucking piece of fucking monster. What a piece of shit. You hear me ask her, aren't you concerned about the police line? No concerns. They would never do that. The whole premise of this is the Wortley report, which specifically showed the police were doing this for years and years and years. A whole report by a professional, Scott Wortley, on this very topic. Of these very kinds of abuses. She sits there and basically said, doesn't exist, you're just making that up, Scott. What a fucking piece of fucking trash. What a piece of trash.
Is there anything else you're good? Beth, is there anything else? You're good. Okay. So Scott, I need to inform you of that. Okay. You can contact patients' rights if you'd like, and you ask for a review board hearing. But otherwise, I am going to continue to work with you. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna leave it there for now.
What, can I ask what medication you're gonna?
I'm gonna start you on risperidone.
Please don't give me an antipsychotic like that, please. Is there anything else? Like, can we, like, I don't want it, like, my mother was on that and I seen what it did to her, and she had really negative effects with that, like, and it, like.
So I'm gonna try, you do need an antipsychotic medication. Are you familiar with any other ones?
No, I'm not.
That you would be more comfortable with?
No, I'm not. It's just, I don't.
So risperidone affects people differently, right? Your mom is older. It may have affected her differently. I chose it because it tends to have less side effects than other ones, okay? The other one that we often use at this stage would be something called olanzapine, but olanzapine can cause a lot of weight gain in people, which people don't like, which is why I chose risperidone.
So, like, if I refuse to take it, you're gonna hold me down and inject me with something. You think that I'm that big of a risk that's accessible?
I do think that you need to get that you can get better, yes.
But okay, what if it comes out that this is all true, and then you actually went through these steps, and I said, like, I'll go talk to somebody, and, like, just take some time with this, and I promise, like, do you know what I mean? What if it comes out that this is true?
I think that you do need medication, okay? I think you need medicine.
We don't even know each other. We haven't talked about it. I mean, I understand. I understand, but I just don't know.
I know that you're keeping it together, and this is not what you wanted to hear, Scott. And I will continue to work with you. If you have papers or documents or anything that you'd like me to look at, I'm happy to look at them, but I am going to prescribe you medication starting tonight, okay?
Okay, I just, like, you guys hurt me as a person, as a fellow human.
I know, and I respect you. I see that you're able to remain calm and that you're like a very kind, genuine guy. I do see that. Okay. I just want you to live your best life, and I think that this is impairing your ability to live your best life.
And you don't think there are ways of resolving that?
I don't think so. Psychosis we treat with medicine. Certainly going to see a counselor and all those sorts of things can help work through other things that are in your life, right? You talked about the struggles with your mom and caring for your mom. Certainly seeing a counselor could be helpful for that in that way. But with psychosis, it does need treatment with medication. It doesn't go away with talk therapy.
What could you give me a definition of psychosis? I won't argue with it. I just want to know what clinical.
I think that you're experiencing delusions, which are fixed false beliefs.
Specifically in relation to McNeil?
And how things that you have done have influenced other things happening, those connections that you're making.
Which other connections?
So the connection in regards to the example that you just gave about your wallet leading to something else happening, leading to something else happening.
So you don't think that was related?
I don't think that those really are connected.
With Jim
I think that you have inferred a lot of things are happening. Because of other things. Right? I'm not dismissing that, Stephen McNeil resigned or that happened, but the connections that you have made between everything and your role in it, I think is delusional.
I worked at
I'm
the
being
shipyard.
honest with you. I know that you worked at the shipyard.
And me and the VPs went through an investigation. I've got the correspondence. I've got the letters from Employment Service Development Canada.
You bring me what you'd like to bring me, okay? Okay, but this is where things are going to stand for today. Okay?
I don't really have a choice. You're going to hold me down, right?
So, Scott, if I want you to know that as an involuntary patient, if for some reason, you took off and didn't come back to the hospital.
I'm not going to do that.
I know you're not.
I'm not, because I'm really scared about what's happening right now, and I don't want to irritate it.
Okay. Would you like passes to go outside?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to give you passes to go outside just on the hospital grounds. Okay. I don't know. Are you a smoker?
No.
Okay.
I don't do drugs. I don't do anything.
I know you're. Yeah. So you walk. You can go for a walk. You can sit outside. If you have family who can come visit, you're welcome to have visits with your family outside. Okay. Okay. It's Friday. I will see you again on Monday.
And you're gonna make me take this until I say that didn't happen. Is that my understanding?
I'd like to see you be better. Yes.
So then.
We're gonna continue to work together, okay? And we'll come up with a plan moving forward. This is where things stand for today. Okay? I'm gonna step out for now, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, Megan.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
I really did. I know. I could say you can, but it's not your responsibility. I don't know why they don't want to see evidence of this. Was a systems analyst for Research and Motion, their top analyst. I worked for Dalhousie. I worked at the shipyard. I've got all the correspondence. I literally have the Excel file with all the dates. And it's like I said in everything you can see it, I never said I was the protagonist. I never said it was centered around me. I said the opposite. I said very clearly, I don't know what's going on. I don't think I'm the protagonist, but something very clearly did happen. And then you can see so can I show you something?
Sure.
Can I? It won't be long. I won't take much of your time. I just want to show you something, okay? So I was
Now immediately here you're going to see that I had to ask her what medication they were going to put me on. She was just going to leave. Wasn't even going to tell me, right? Didn't go over side effects or anything. Didn't go over 46% chance of erectile dysfunction, did she? No. But she's helping people live their best life? Yeah, fucking right. Right? She says, oh, this one has less side effects. That's, you hear them, her admitting they're going to hold me down and inject me as I'm saying, please, let's talk about evidence instead. So you hear about how violent her delusions have become, right? So it's not based on facts and evidence. Her information is based on second-hand information, third-hand information, and she's now going to engage in severe violence. And then try to say, well, it's all okay because I thought I was right. This is a fucking piece of garbage, right? You gotta really appreciate all the small things that make her an actual fucking monster. And you hear me then go in to say, like, what will you do if this comes out that it's right? Nothing, because she's gonna hide like a fucking coward and pretend that she's the victim. Right? She knows that's what she's gonna do. Well, she's like, well, there's no consequences for me, so it doesn't really fucking matter. You're the one's gonna be tortured and go through all these fucking consequences. That's right. You watch now, she'll want all of her rights. She'll hide behind a lawyer. Well, I was denied a lawyer and they obviously lied about it and she didn't even record it or report it. She's gonna lie about it. She's gonna say, well, let's sit down and go about the facts and the evidence. She's gonna be able to sit down and talk about it. That right there is a piece of fucking monster. Quite clearly, she thought less of me as a human being, right? You hear her saying, you know, I appreciate you remaining calm, kind, and genuine and whatever, because I was the entire time to every single person. I was being respectful, responsible, I came educated, I came with evidence, everything. Here she is being a violent, delusional, dick-hating nightmare monster. Right? And you hear her state about the struggles with my mom. So I told her about it. So if you wonder why about the Dr. Bradley thing or talking about me, no, I told her about my mother and the issues I was having and I needed help with that. Because it was bad. It was getting bad. She gave up. And to that 6 days after I got out, about 6 days, we got note back from the doctor. They found a 17 centimeter mass inside of her stomach. She was really, really sick. It was leaking pus and making her delirious. And I knew something really was going on, and she was trying to tell me something was going on. And it was so bad that I was in the hospital for 10 days. She thought I was only in there for 3. She fell multiple times. She crushed the garbage can out here. She had bruises all over her. She was terrified. She didn't know what was going on. So you hear her state that this is psychosis, delusional, fixed false beliefs. Fixed false beliefs. So then, I've got all this evidence. I can prove all this stuff, Dr. Holmes. So what is it about your beliefs? You didn't base it on evidence. You didn't base it on facts. You didn't base it on a technical expert. What did you base it on? Your fixed false beliefs, you dumb monster. Of course you did, right? Yours wasn't based on facts and evidence. You even hear me saying, look, so you guys can hear it. I told her before I did all this investigation with VPs, these people right at the top of J.D. Irving, said she can't see how Stephen McNeil's connected. So you can take the wallet out of the equation and say, okay, Scott, you just did this investigation, all this racism stuff happened, and then you caught them all and did a write-up, all these security reviews, she knows this, and then he resigns. And I'm not saying it's all about me. I even tell her, look, it doesn't seem like it's all about me. I think that maybe they thought I was somebody I wasn't, and that's what this whole post-media and Torstar thing is. And look at all the dates that's happened with David Pudgley's on dates that were significant with me. Right? But she's saying, oh, I can't see how that's connected. Doesn't make sense. What a fucking lying piece of fucking She is either completely fucking stupid or you hear exactly how bad she's lying, right? Didn't think she'd be caught. Imagine if there wasn't a recording of this. What do you think that monster would be doing? Yeah, you know what that piece of monster is already gonna do. You hear me stating I'm scared, because she's being a fucking monster. Like a monster. Irrational, unintelligent, uninformed, delusional, violent monster. That's what she was. And you hear me say, you're gonna make me take this until I say it didn't happen? Coercive torture. Quite clearly, this was coercive torture, right? She didn't want facts or evidence or anything like that. She's like, no, you better just believe me or agree with me. And if you don't, I'm going to torture you until you do. That's coercive torture. Literally coercive torture. It's not based on facts. It's not based on evidence. Not based on due process. It's not based on human dignity. It's based on you just agreeing with her made-up fucking delusions. She just doesn't agree. Not facts and evidence. She just doesn't agree with you. Torture. It's coercive torture. And then you hear me say at the end, basically to Megan, that, I got something to show you. And I want it clear for the record so nobody targets her. All I showed her was the newspaper articles where I stood out for racism and told her that the police had showed up that day and that my internet got cut when that went out. And told her, I have a whole bunch of other evidence. I could have shown Dr. Holms, but quite clearly she doesn't want to talk about evidence or anything like that. She had already made up her mind within a few minutes of speaking to me. That is a piece of fucking monster shit. For a human fucking being. Not Meg, but Dr. Holmes. Megan was really nice. She's a really nice, sweet girl. I really appreciated that. She was so kind. But she doesn't know anything. That's why I didn't go into a bunch of details. Think about it. We'll talk about that. Now, we've gone through this whole meeting here, and right now you can go back and look at all the evidence I have. I only assigned the McNeil event 1%. And it's right in my work. So, I gave that a 1 in 100 chance of being related, and she's telling me that's delusional. That is a piece of fucking monster. But most importantly, she's stating that my wallet led to all of these things. I never said that ever in any of my work. I'm here literally saying this stuff about Post-Media and Torstar and then thinking I'm somebody I wasn't. Which is a good point, because it was all through the news. So, her stating that I think this, no, I never thought that. That's what she thought, because she was an irrational, illogical human being. She didn't want to talk about facts or evidence. It was all about her fixed delusions. She became fixated. Yeah, we got all these events with Jim Perrin, and he just, me getting a speeding ticket on the same, right? Getting pointed at in traffic 8 days after I filed a complaint. They're making announcements that day saying it will be disingenuous to apologize unless more is done, i.e. the transfer Jim Perrin. Then my wallet gets stolen, just happens to end up with HRP. I never said he stole it or anything. I'm saying that maybe that became the time that they're seeing opportunity for them to get something, right? So maybe it was this completely harmless event. But as soon as they got it, they seen the opportunity in it. I don't know, right? But then Jim Perrin getting his job offering on the 17th, just 12 days after I got my wallet back. And then on the 19th of November, 2019, the new chief states there will be an apology for the black community. Jim Perrin gets his transfer. I get an email. That's right, Dr. Holms. I get an email about a job for Capital Health. Torstar shuts down their fucking Halifax office. Well, Post Media had just came into Halifax March 15, 2019. And you see all these events then with J.D. Irving. And if you look over the events with David Pudge-Lees, it looks like they launched an all-out attack. Which is exactly why the government and J.D. Irving responded the way they did. Well, coincidentally, a bunch of those dates with David Pudge-Lees landed on dates that were significant with me. Leading somebody to believe that perhaps something is going on with me. Because I'm just this guy who showed up and now all of this is happening. Which is a very reasonable thought. That's right. You don't see a connection there, sweetheart? So then, guess who they just happened to send in the investigation? Jim Perrin. Halifax Regional Police. I didn't know about Jim Perrin until January 14th, 2020. That's right. So you don't see the connection, sweetheart? You don't see the connection because you're a monster. That's the only way you don't see the connection. Because you didn't want to sit down and discuss anything or have a rational conversation. And you'll even see in my work I stated that that's all speculative. You can't judge him based on that. But the connections are all there. That's a completely responsible fucking statement, you dick-hating nightmare monster. Right? Now, Dr. Holms, they all got transferred because of the whole thing with racism, quite clearly. And the Wortley report, because you can't keep the same spokesperson who wouldn't apologize for it and then called it a systemic bias. Right? You can't. And it's not his fault. No matter what his views are, they can't keep him because nobody's ever going to trust them. Well then, after they all got transferred, they're now on recording, being caught downplaying and disregarding the importance of systemic racism, systemic harassment, and its applicability in this case regarding the transfer and how appropriate it is or isn't. That's right, and then they were caught mocking it, saying it was basically all some narrative to get him, or them, the police. And then this stuff happens with George Floyd and everything. So you want to know why somebody might have to resign after something like that? When it's all on record? Yeah. Now, if they're on recording mocking racism, calling it all some narrative to get police, and they got dominated because my technical reviews are solid. Jody Posafraud got dominated. Jim Perrin got dominated. My technical, ethical, and security reviews are solid. You can review them if you'd like. Oh, that's right, Dr. Holmes, you're not a technical expert. You can't understand any of that or review any of it, right? And since you're just you and I'm just Scott Yours, I must just be wrong because that's convenient for your delusions. You fucking piece of monster. And then they mocked racism and harassment, and then a whole global movement happens with George Floyd. And I warned them about that very behavior and what it was going to cause, right? And then I write this letter after the case got closed. So we did a whole investigation with VPs, these people right at the top of J.D. Irving, Jim Perrin from HRP, but she don't see how HRP is connected to this. What a fucking piece of shit. Well, she's ignoring that, Robin McNeil became the interim chief. Well, John Michael Blaze left until Dan Kinsella came in during the period in which this events would have happened with Jim Perrin. And in fact, Robin McNeil was the one who signed the thing stating it would be disingenuous to apologize. That's right, but she doesn't see the connections? Dr. Holmes, why do you think they didn't include that in the police report? Kind of specific, isn't it? You're talking about it, saying that's what you're held up on. So why didn't they put that in the police report with HRP? Yeah, you know why, you fucking monster. Right? So now you've got this situation where I go out protesting racism. My face pops up in a newspaper. Now, this has to do with Postmedia and Torstar, because you can go back and look at them. Look at the events with J.D. Irving and the D&D and the commissioner. That's right. So this has to do with newspapers and these special interests. My face pops up in the newspaper. My internet gets cut to my house for 2 days. Okay, maybe it's not related, but I have the logs and it did happen, honey. So here, how about this, Dr. Holmes? My GPS location getting set to a house in Stillwater, Nova Scotia. Huh? So I'm just making that up, right? And I just made it up and just guessed a house. And now there's pictures of them at the shipyard. Pictures, signed certificates of the Prime Minister. And then when you look up the land records, they match these Emic contracts. And my IP address is set there. These Emic contracts now, you can jump forward and look at David Pudge Lee's doing an article that Emic was right here in Nova Scotia, talking about military propaganda training. And I've got the military IPs connected to my system. Honey, but that's all made up? You're a fucking piece of fucking monster. Right? So then, on the date, so now all these people are involved, including the Defense Minister, Jody Thomas, Jonathan Vance. So you got D&D, all these people now involved. Serious fucking people. And I send this letter saying I got you, talking about how inappropriate it was to do this with racism and mock and harass it, saying right with the defense minister. Now I have given you a serious and quantified instance of systemic harassment, and I respectfully ask for you to end it. You don't understand why the premier might have stepped down after that? You're a fucking monster. I don't need Stephen McNeil to explain these events. And then what are you going to say? I should take this to the police? Now, honey, what about all the land views at my property? When they started at 0, and I can correlate them with me sending out letters. Just, it's all made up because it fits your fucking delusion? So, the fact that HRP just happens to show up questioning about a woman in a night dress, when my mother's known for wearing night dresses in the middle of all of this. Yeah, just made up. Hey, there's my cousin's neighbors reporting somebody watching their children so bad and taking pictures that they had to corner them because they thought it was a pedophile, and they reported it to RCMP twice, right? Because these live right by my cousin. And RCMP didn't contact him back. The person themselves said, I'm a private investigator, please don't hurt me. But it's all made up, they're all liars too, right? That's right. Me being stalked to the store by the police and stuff, that's made up. There's witnesses, multiple witnesses, but it's all made up to fit your delusions, right? My ex telling me he got stopped by the RCMP twice and they searched his car, went through every single paper. It's all made up, right? Now, the second Emic contract, honey, matching the date that letter happened and matching the events then with the Howling Wolves in Nova Scotia, matching directly with Emic and Target Audience Analysis, TAA. Then 6 months later, like I said, Stephen McNeil Lee's office. Look at it. You could have verified this, couldn't ya? Yeah. You could have also looked up the Wolf in the Neural Network because it was available. So, all this evidence was available. What did you base your decisions on? Prejudice, bias, ignorance. I have the right to live my life however the fuck I see fit, you fucking piece of shit. So, how do you feel about all those land blips and my accounts being locked the day I walked down to Halifax Regional Police? Oh, it's all coincidence. It's all made up. You're making that up, Scott. You're making it up? Fuck off, you stupid monster. So what about Valent Legal stating they were being hacked? And about Burschel's LP stating they were being hacked? All made up, Scott. It's all made up. It's you just making it up. You, Dr. Holmes, are a fucking piece of trash. Right? So what about the person offering me $50,000 for stories about my life? Yeah, it's all made up, right? No. So, Dr. Holmes, who do I take this to? Right? You're going to say the police, right? This picture of a police vest is all made up, right, Dr. Holmes? All made up, right? The police showing up and driving back and forth and pointing down and stalking you with multiple witnesses in a newspaper article, but it's all made up, right? To fit. Oh, and what about them deleting the Emic contract? Here's RCMP being notified, and the only reason they edit them back, Dr. Holmes, is because somebody added it to the Wayback Machine, you fucking idiot. But it's all made up, right? All made up to fit your delusions, you piece of fucking trash. So after a few days or whatever, we did another meeting, and she'd said, oh, well, good, you're not paranoid about the police being in your phone anymore. And I was like, excuse me? When did I ever say I was paranoid about the police being in my phone? And she's like, well, you thought the police were after... I'm like, I didn't think the police were after me. What are you talking about? You see, this came from HRP that they said that, and then it got passed up 3 or 4 different times, and she doesn't even know the circumstances of what she's talking about. And here's the thing. I don't give a fuck if they're in my phone. I don't give a fuck about that if they're in my computer. I'm not a shy person. I'll watch porn. I'll watch whatever I feel like fucking watching when I feel like watching it. And even if the police... I did think the police were after me. How in the fuck is she supposed to know that they're not? She's a piece of fucking monster, alright? And in fact, here's what I said to her. I said, I'm not worried about anybody sees pictures of me or anything like that. I don't really care. I was like, the way I look at this, Dr. Holm, is that there are 3.5 billion penises, dicks, on the planet. And I just happen to have the best one. And she laughed and covered her face. She made up everything to fit her delusions, her preconceived notions and biases and prejudice. It was her fixed delusions. It had nothing to do with me. It was all about her fixed delusions. Alright? And I'll show you. See, Dr. Holmes, think about my GPS location being set to the location in Stillwater, Nova Scotia. I have real good evidence of a radio transmitter behind my house that I found setting up commercial hardware. Well, it would be consumer hardware, but it's made by an actual company. And here's a whole episode on it, me and Mike talking about my biases. Obviously these places being hacked, my accounts being locked down, them trying to get my passwords and everything like that. So this relates to spyware. Now we can go back into the deep dive and show you where the spyware intersects and how this goes back even further, right back to 2017. Not with me, but like with the issue in general, right? Because I did a full security review on the global context, which we haven't even gotten to yet. So it's spyware. Now, honey, do you remember what book I was reading? Moby Dick. That's right. Now, there's lots of Easter eggs inside of that, and I obviously talked about my dick and my dick pictures, right? You know, my first name's Richard. Richard is long for dick, as it should be. You see, at the same time, RCMP was doing their spyware inquiry. That's right, look, at the exact same time I was in there, sweetheart. And I was reading Moby Dick, and you see all the Moby Dick references? I had my feet up. Well, David Fraser, a well-known privacy lawyer, who was... stated they were a conflict of interest, but were involved at different points in this, No, seriously, Dr. Holmes, go back and look at the record and see who I wrote down can contact and ask anything about me. There was only like 2 people, and David Fraser was one of them. As he's now on CTV, talking about the Pegasus software, and you can relate that directly to Moby Dick. Only a fucking idiot would not understand what I'm saying, so... was on CTV News talking about spyware and privacy. And these exact issues that I had come across. Going back through 2018 and then back to 2017. So you gonna say that I didn't know what was going on? That's some kind of fixed delusion? Are you gonna try to claim I tricked you and lied to you about certain points? Fuck off. Are you gonna try to claim that had RCMP just brought me in off the street, you wouldn't have just believed everything they told you? You fucking idiot? Yes, you would have. You proved that. You proved what a fucking delusional, unintelligent piece of shit you'll be, and you'll prove that you'll try to cover it up as part of the extortion engine because you knew how bad it was. Even when it was so obvious, look what you chose to do. So if they did this in a less obvious case, you would have done much fucking worse. See, Dr. Holmes, I knew what you were. I knew what a failure you were. I knew what a monster you were so willing to be. I knew what you were going to do. I talked about it. We had old conversations with my family and my friends. They were like, Scott, like, you caught these people. Do you know, like, what they're going to do? They're, like, trying to lock you up and do something. I'm like, I know. I already detailed it in my reports and everything. And they were like, aren't you scared? And I'm like, well, I'm really smart, so that's why they haven't tried it yet, and they know how right I am. But you're right. They're going to get desperate. And then everybody's just going to believe them and then come after me. Which is part of why I had to walk down to HRP. So we talked about it, sweetheart. We talked about exactly what you were going to do and how you were going to do it. And you acted exactly that fucking way. You were literally a dick-hating nightmare monster for free. They didn't even need to pay you extra. You were just like a full-on hateful fucking monster for free. And look at all this fucking evidence. Look at the stuff with Moby Dick. Honey, This isn't even 20% of the fucking evidence, so I mean, you're the one who got fixated on McNeil. Look at all this other evidence. Literally, in my work, you will see I only assigned McNeil a 1%, which means that what all you really did was confirm that had I have focused on the McNeil event alone, then you would have called me crazy. You would have said that's some kind of psychosis, but I literally didn't and can prove it, that you got fixated on it. So by your own definition of psychosis on that topic, you are delusional. You have delusional psychosis. You have fixed false beliefs. I didn't. You just confirmed I did the right thing, right? But you're not going to face that, are you? No, you're going to hide like a fucking coward. And who are you going to say I should take this to? You're going to say the police. And look what happened when I did. Amazing. It's amazing. Okay, so Dr. Holmes, how do you feel that because RCMP said because you said I'm retarded, I don't get rights? So bad that somebody had to stop her. And then when she was told about my GPS location, puts her hands in her hair and says, well, maybe you're not supposed to know. You know what that is, Dr. Holmes, as a psychologist. That's not me. That's corrupt police, sweetie. That's corrupt fucking police.
And they told me, Jessica, that if I even mention J.D. Irving, they will have me fucking arrested and pumped full of drugs.
And then you've got Jonathan Jeffries, like you can go back, watch the episodes, you see him lying. You see those officers intentionally omitted these facts from the record, and you know why, you're a psychologist. Right, there's this whole report by Scott Wortley on this very behavior. An objective report on the same institution about them doing this. So, he says that he's basing what he's saying on you, and you're saying you're basing it on these arresting officers, passing this up multiple times. But he's not allowing me to include the arresting officers, but saying that you were just right because you're basing it off these arresting officers. Clearly, you see how stupid that fucking is. Right? So are you going to address that? No, right? You're a fucking monster. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, you are that fucking nightmare monster people see in movies about going to mental health institutions. You are that lying piece of fucking trash who can't face itself, so will do a massive amounts of abuse and damage to other people's lives. So you don't have to face who you are. So you don't have to face these right kinds of white. Right? This had nothing to do with me. If it had something to do with me, you would have taken time to assess the evidence in even its most basic form. Right? Think about this. Me sending a letter and then the next day Stephen McNeil resigning, that's just a 1 in 365 chance. Especially given all these relationships, and you're stating that doesn't make sense to you? What? And then all these other events coincidentally happening on the same day. Basic math shows you you're wrong. Children can understand it, but you're going to say, no, I didn't present it in a way that was rational or well thought out? You're a piece of fucking trash and you got caught. So the thing is now is to watch someone like you, right? Because you understand the premise of the Stanford prison study, right? You don't have to agree with the way it was conducted, but you understand, and it's the same thing with Jane Elliott speaking about racism and what happens when you tell a group of people they're just better than other people. They will lie, cheat, steal, and do some of the most horrendous things to other people. Just saying, well, I thought I was, nobody stopped me. Right? The right kind of white didn't stop you, so you just felt justified in everything you were doing. It wasn't based on facts, evidence, or due process. And now what? You're going to drag my family into it? Say I had to choose my mother? If you drag my sisters into this, and then blame me, you are the biggest fucking piece of fucking pig shit that ever fucking existed. I can't see how right at this point, the RCMP isn't looking at you for criminal fucking negligence. What did you base your torture on? Nothing. Nothing. You just did it because you didn't want to be challenged. You didn't want to face these right kinds of white. You're a monster, Dr. Holmes. You're a monster and a fucking failure who can't face who and what she really is. But I can tell you this, sweetheart, you're gonna fucking face it. And I will crush your career and reputation into a fine fucking powder and blow it to the wind. Because you had no problem trying to take my dick from me. Think about this. We're all talking about all these animals and dominance, and you try to take my balls? You're a fucking... As I'm reading Moby Dick? You tell me I don't know what's going on, sweetie? Oh. I know. It's you who doesn't have a fucking clue, you dick-hating nightmare monster. You fucking piece of shit monster. Anyway, everybody, that's my episode on this. I know it got a little tangy, but this monster literally tortured me, and then she lied on official record. It's pretty obvious. And she's gonna complain. Pretend she's the victim. Oh, I didn't you! Oh, I'm the victim! Oh, it's so hard they lied to me! How could I know? Oh! You fucking watch this piece of trash try everything she fucking can. And imagine what this piece of fucking trash would have done had there not been a recording. You know what this piece of shit would have done. And then look what and as an undeniable fact, then look what RCMP did. Just because she said I'm retarded, I don't get a review of case, I don't get anything. I'm reporting somebody touching me inappropriately. And I don't deserve rights. Because she said I'm retarded. That is criminal fucking negligence. That is her covering up serious abuses. And I will not stand for it.